feminist charlatan, more than I bargained then. I say I think women have cocks and that men look good in frocks, but I'll sell my arse on OnlyFans and claim that it's a feminist friend. But I've sold out to any who pay. That's the modern feminist charlatan's way. I'm a feminist where men go first. You see that I'm the worst. No wonder I'm so bitter. My feminism.
Good afternoon. How the devil are you? I thought I'd go back to look. What state are we in this country? Like, what is going on in this country? Well, one of the things that's going on in this country is something called diversity and equity and inclusion, or diversity, equality and inclusion, or diversity, inclusion. Any of these things are what is going wrong in this country. This weird thing. Basically, it's like if you want to have sex with the opposite sex, and if you're a white person, you really are at the bottom of the food chain. We're not supposed to say that, but we all know it's true, right? We all know it's true. And there are many ways that this manifests. Some of it is about things that used to be for women and no longer for women anymore, like women inequalities is now dicks inequalities or something like that. I don't know. I'm just using the people that I saw in the room. So I'm going to have a little look at that meeting. And I'm just going to say I'm not particularly nice about the EHRC. I think it's shit. I think it's powerless. I think it's gutless. I think it's pointless. A bit like the ICO. Any of these government regulators, they don't seem to have any teeth, and they don't seem to want to do anything about anything at any point. And we're all supposed to go, oh, there's a process, and the process is so great. Let's write some guidance. Why do you need guidance? Because people are too fucking thick to know the law, to follow the law. So apparently it's very, very difficult to understand what we all did before we decided that women could have penises, right? It's really, really, really difficult. It's so difficult. Like, oh, what should we do? Now that the toilets that until 2 years ago were men's and women's toilets, what should we do now? I don't know. Oh, so complicated. So anyway, let's have a look at some of the miserable witches who work at the Women and Equalities Commission. I think that's what it's called, or WANK for short. Let's have a look at some of the things that these women have said, because quite frankly, none of them should have a job. I mean, Jesus, if they, I don't even know how they would get through an interview for a normal job. But the woman who chairs it, I forget her name, but she's got what we call resting bitch face, which is not a very nice thing to say about anyone, but you'll see what I mean when you see her face. So let's have a look. Ah, there she is. Look, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Okay.
You both for coming in this afternoon. I think you've
Oh, it's the Death Eater. What's her name? Kim.
had a really difficult job to do, and you've got my sympathy and understanding for that. But I am concerned about what this looks like in the real world.
Yeah, because it's ever so, oh my God, it's ever so difficult to understand what this really looks like in the real world. Like, how would you know? How would you know? So this is Kim Death Eater. She's the person that wanted to, suicide everybody. I think that woman in the back in the blue, she looked a bit like the YMCA woman who wouldn't answer questions. Maybe she's on side, but she does look like that woman. When I went to that recent thing, can't remember what it was. Oh, the International Women's Day. And she was, she pushed me. She assaulted me, actually.
And I think one of your opening comments, Dr. Stevenson, was that, we now got a very clear...
It isn't her. Let me just be clear. It is not her.
...position about what the law says, but the manifestation of that feels far from clear. So you've said that we probably need more sector-specific advice for charities, for the NHS. You've said that...
Men are men, women are... What more do you fucking need? Keep the men out of women's spaces, right? If a man pretends not to be a man and he desperately needs the toilet, and there's only a choice of men's and women's, then he goes to the men's. Quite frankly, I think he should always go to the men's.
These are not new conversations, and I just worry that this is all very messy. And
it's very messy because, you know, when I see a penis, I ask myself, is that a male body part? And can we suicide it? You know, and if I don't know where to put the needle for the suicide kind of poison, I'm asking myself, is that a dick? You know, and if we can suicide someone, is that always a woman? What's the difference there? You know, suicide and penises and difficult, messy and everything.
And back to what Alex Bro said, you know, what I'm interested in is how are we making people's lives better?
Well, we're making women's lives better, Kim. Can I call you Death Eater for short? We're making women's life better, Kim, because at the moment women don't know that there's not going to be a fetishist having a wank in the toilets. So we're going to make those women's lives better because those women will now understand, and they should have understood it before, but apparently it was too difficult. They should have understood before, and they should understand right now that when there is something that says woman on it, that's actually a woman. So when it says a woman's toilet, that's just for women. When it says a man's toilet, that's just for men. So, you know, in many ways, you don't have to kill someone for them to have rights.
And not worse and not more complicated. And from what I've heard this afternoon, it doesn't feel like we've made life better for, certainly not for trans people.
Certainly not for like the 5 people out of 2,000 that do want to go in the opposite sex toilet, completely unfettered. Like, why can't we make it easier for them to sexually assault people? I don't understand it.
I'm not sure we've made life better for anybody with what's happened. I just wondered if you had any reflections on that and what you think some of that follow-up work might look like to try and make sure that that is the key objective.
Now, if she just doesn't come back with, of course it's easier, we've made lives easier for women, and something like these committees, they have this way of talking, and I see it with women in debates, that you have to pretend to be like, you have to be seen to be reasonable when the opposite side is saying something so utterly shamefully moronic.
I mean, I think if you look across the code, as I said, it covers 8 protected characteristics, and it goes into a lot more detail than you would get, for example, in the Equality Act about what does that mean in practice. Now, obviously, there are some areas where the law is complex. The intersection between the Equality Act and charity law, for example, is complicated.
What we really need, right, with this, because this is obviously all about troonery, what we actually need with this is we need to repeal the GRA. And then no men have birth certificates, no men have any kind of fictitious notion that they can be recognised as anything other than men. Like, I don't agree with dress how you like, blah, blah, blah. I don't agree with any of that. However, a man in a dress remains a man, and it's fucking idiotic that we ever decided it meant anything else.
Whether or not charities can easily change their objects is not straightforward. And so people
would be operating under legally sound arrangements and would not have. That's the way we've thought about that. That's the purpose of having a
clearly said to me and to other colleagues, we've now got a lot of problems we just didn't have before because we were actually doing a fine job of including
letting men in women's spaces. Go on, you say it, deadbeat, whatever your name is.
Trans people and, you know, giving young people opportunities and you know, it just really worries me that this has made it worse for organisations like that. I'll come on to it.
There were loads of organisations that were basically saying, fuck women, you know, we know that all the fundraising and everything was from women, but we decided to like royally fist those women, like screw up their lives, make sure that all of our organisations were gaslighting and letting men in. Like we were so proud to do that, and now we might get taken to court.
Quite a specific question about
trans people,
single unisex spaces. So, to what extent will broadening the use of existing unisex spaces, such as disabled toilets and baby changing facilities, to meet the needs of trans people, impact on those other protected characteristics? Do you think?
And that's something that we do identify in the code needs to be monitored and kept under review. To be clear, we are not suggesting that.
Honestly, just make them, just say, go to the fucking toilets that match your sex, you pricks. Okay, so there's going to be a highlight here any minute now. Oh, here she is. Are you ready?
Briefly, just going back to third spaces in the NHS, obviously availability of side rooms is very limited. And actually what we do know is some people that will need the side room because they're really, really unwell will be kicked out of those side rooms so a man doesn't have to go on a men's ward. So really, it's a two-tier NHS. There is, if you have some special feelings about your the way you want to dress, you get a side room. You get a private room. Would a trans person whose care is delayed while finding an available third space side room for them be able then to claim for gender reassignment discrimination?
See, this is why gender reassignment, GRA and gender reassignment needs to be annihilated. The Equality Act is shit. But this is exactly, I mean, she highlights a good point. Will you be able to do that? You know, like when you've got women sort of dying of cancer and you've got elderly people just kind of festering on beds, or in corridors, on in A&E, and you've got people waiting for 13 or 14 hours to see a doctor in A&E, right, on a Friday, Saturday night, sometimes even midweek. In the 2 hospitals that are nearer me, that's what happens. Do you think now that we're going to have to say that these people get 2-tier because they've got some special protected characteristic?
I think it would depend on the circumstances. I mean, what you're generally talking about, if you...
Can I just say, if a woman goes into a hospital and she can't have a bed on a single sex ward, right, and she has to go into a mixed ward, can she say it's indirect discrimination? Can she? Can she? Because I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
Situation where you've got a rule that applies to everyone, that you would be expected to use a single sex space and then you can't, and you're providing another space, that might be indirect discrimination. That's very fact specific. And so it's hard to give a concrete answer. It would depend on the circumstances of the case. But that is a potential issue, and that is one of the reasons why service providers need to think about making sure they provide service guidance in this area.
To be absolutely clear, because as I understand it, the draft code says multiple protected characteristics approach is necessary for compliance with Article 11 of the European Code on Human.
You know, they're only talking about men, right? You know that not one of them is thinking about a 5'2" girl going in a ward with all men.
Right, freedom of association. So you could, a women's association like, say for example, the Girl Guides or Women's Institute could say that they were now an association for women and trans women. And that
trans people, because they're two the
so
characteristics
that would be acceptable.
Depending on whether they're a registered charity or not. If they're a registered charity, it becomes more complicated.
But an association,
could.
One thing I wanted to ask you is, going back to what you were saying earlier, you have said repeatedly that people thought they had rights when they didn't, but also that the system that we have has worked well for decades. If it's worked well for decades, why do you think we felt there was a need to change it?
Yeah. What I was talking about in saying the system worked well for decades was the idea that it's not possible to operate single-sex spaces because you can't tell whether somebody's male or female. And I'm saying we have operated single-sex spaces for decades, and generally speaking, that hasn't been a problem. In terms of the change, I mean,
since the GRA.
The change, I mean, clearly there were problems with the way in which...
GRA needs to go. Let's carry on, because I just want to get these unbelievable people employed. 90 grand a year.
Thank you. I'm going to hand over to Rachel and then to Kevin and then to Alex Brewer.
Thank you. Given the importance of...
How miserable is that woman? So awful. What an awful human being.
Sport to health, well-being and community cohesion. And I'm very passionate about this as someone who still plays grassroots sport.
Mm-hmm. Well, I hope you don't get tackled by a bloke and get your leg broken, love.
Do you think the Commission has a responsibility to set out some clear examples of how sports clubs can enable trans people to participate where possible, or do you think it's okay?
Yes, yes. Here you go. Oh, all right, Fred. You want to call yourself Janet now? Yeah, you're still playing the men's team. Is that all right? Lovely. Well done. Yeah, and use the men's changing room. And if you need a piss, go in the men's. All right, brilliant. Yeah, you can still play, but you'll be playing on the men's team. Brilliant. Fantastic. Oh, all right, Karen. Yeah, you're Kevin now, are you? Or Ash or Kai, whatever the trendy name is. You still want to play? Yeah, you're gonna have to stay in the ladies' team though. Yeah. I know you've had your breast cut off and you've got a silly wispy beard, but you'll get chopped in two. You play with the men, so you're a woman, so you play on the women's team. There you go. See, it's easy.
That trans people will just, as a result of this, stop being involved in sport.
Oh no, what a shame. A man will stop playing whatever sport, like all the girls have had to because they don't want to play against men. Oh no. Oh, I'm so sad.
Sport and physical activity.
I don't think it's okay that trans people would just stop being a result of sports
and
physical activity. I mean,
I know we have to play this game, but there is no such thing as a trans person.
I think we, although we haven't got a standalone case study in the code, we have in the narrative where we talk about...
Let's have a look at this person.
For the person that Sarah talked about. Alternative provision, if you've got a male oncology ward, say, and a female oncology ward, what would that alternative provision look like? Because it sounds like that would be...
None! The NHS is fucking broke! It's shit! None! There is no alternative. Oh, you've got prostate cancer. Either get it fucking fixed under the NHS and put up with whatever you're given, or fuck off. There is no separate provision. Oh my God. What would that look like? Like, what special something can we do to carve out for this fucking group of people? None! None! You want some treatment on the NHS? Have a shit treatment like everybody else.
A third type of oncology ward. And while that might sound okay on paper, clearly in practice you can't staff that. There's no. You've already got two clinical teams already.
So you want, right. So what's he saying? That you put men... What's the alternative, Dickie?
It might be a side room. It might be. I mean, it depends on the treatment. Depends on the service, for example. I mean, as John said, what our code can't do.
Can't. It just can't. Well, what if you've got penis cancer? Well, don't go in with the women because the women don't want you there. I'm just going to scroll and see if there's. I think she might.
The law to be, the rules are widely open to misuse is difficult to understand.
Thank you. I'm hand back to Nadia, and I know some others want to come in.
What strikes me is that these are the same stereotypes that women have been trying to escape.
This is not about somebody is male or female, and in most instances we expect that when rules are set, people will follow those rules.
What's your reaction?
It sets out clearly what the law says. It gives examples of how you can deliver the law in practice in a way that protects what they're...
Thank you. Nadia.
Thank you, Sarah. The OEO's impact assessment says that trans people could face a disproportionate risk of violence and sexual assault as a result of this code. What's your reaction to that?
Who said that? What's your reaction to something totally made up with no evidence? What's your reaction to that? Yeah, okay.
I think we recognise that disadvantage.
I can't listen to this shit.
That is. equality and exceptions to the sort of general prohibition on discrimination, so you can't discriminate, but there are certain circumstances where that's possible. For example, around age, around provision of single-sex services, around...
Going specifically back to the risks that the OEO impact assessment highlights, do you not think that's incredibly serious? This is a group that is already at disproportionate risk of violence.
No, they're not. No, it's quite proportionate, I would say.
And sexual assaults.
Again, not true. Just not true. I think she should have to back that up. It's absolute shit. Bullshit. Lies. It's lies.
Which is now being put at increased risk because of the actions of a body that is supposed to stand up for equalities and human rights.
Well, I think there's a couple of things here. I think, first of all, the OEO's impact assessment was going beyond looking at what the code was to looking at the legislation. There was no evidence provided for some of the things that they said might happen.
Good, thank you for that. Okay, good. Well done. Let's see.
Physique or physical appearance, behaviour, or concerns raised by other services
requires. And in this instance, where you are providing services, single-sex services or services separately, that needs to be on the basis of biological sex. But we also make very clear that that should not leave trans people without access to services, and we give specific examples of how you could do that.
Your code suggests that employees of a business should enforce restrictions based on evidence such as, and I quote, the individual's physique or physical appearance, behaviour, or concerns raised by other service users. Can you please define specific elements of physique, physical appearance? And
if he's got a cock, if he's got an Adam's apple, if he's got a heavy brow, if his hands are quite big, if he looks like a bloke, which they all do. If he's 6'5", maybe. Just, really easy to spot a man pretending to be a woman.
Behaviour that you would suggest it would be appropriate for staff to base their concerns on. And can you tell us where in the Supreme Court judgments it requires this?
I think that what's required here is to take a common sense approach, right? So we are talking about, what the law requires and what our code says is not that people should be judged on how well they perform masculinity or femininity, that the actual requirement is whether or not somebody is male or female. And in most instances, we expect that when rules are set, people will follow those rules. There may be some occasions, and as we make clear in the code, the response of service providers has to be proportionate. So, for example, it wouldn't be proportionate to have somebody checking who goes into toilets. But if you are, for example, running a women's refuge, then it is legitimate to be able to make decisions about who can and cannot come into that refuge if it is a single-sex service. And
that already happens on a case-by-case basis, though, and has done for many decades.
She thinks she's AOC or something, doesn't she? Can I just tell Nadia that really what's really important is that women have their single-sex spaces, and there's no case-by-case basis about whether or not women will self-exclude from those sort of services if there are blokes in them.
I think the thing about a case-by-case basis...
Let me finish, please.
Okay.
Specifically on...
See, if that wasn't a really nasty chair, she would have probably reprimanded that MP for being so fucking rude.
Elements of physique, physical appearance. What is it specifically? Is it height, build, hairy legs?
Do we have to pretend that we don't know what a man looks like, Nadia?
Face shape.
I think the problem that we get into in this area is people put themselves into a position where they either say you can always tell or you can never tell. And I think actually we're in a situation where we know there is no legal documentation that you can ask for to prove somebody's sex. However, a common sense approach would understand that, for example, very many women will have had an experience of being in a pub or club toilet where a man has walked in drunk and they've said, mate, I think you're in the wrong room. That has been based on physical appearance. And we make those sorts of decisions all the time. We make those sorts of judgments all the time. But what we are clear about is this is not about how somebody dresses, whether somebody has short hair, how well somebody performs femininity or not. This is exactly about somebody's sex and whether or not they can access services. And as I say, most people we would expect to follow the rules.
Dr. Stevenson, that example that you gave about a nightclub toilet, a man walking into a women's toilet absolutely drunk, what is there to stop that man now saying that I'm a trans man? And how can they prove or disprove to the other users?
Oh, for God's sake, I can't. It's too annoying. It's just too annoying. I would think if I were her, I'd just explode at this point. That's why the GRA needs repealing. That's what we should have spent our money on for the last 10 years. The GRA needs repealing, and then we need to get gender reassignment out of the Equality Act, although I'd like to just throw the whole thing in the bin.
Stereotypes that women have been trying to escape. And you haven't stated where in the Supreme Court judgment this is required, and that's because it's purely a product of the EHRC, isn't it? It's not actually in the judgment. Do you agree?
The EHRC's job is to write guidance to help morons who pretend they don't know what the law is and how to interpret the law. And when you say a woman is a woman and a man is a man, that you keep men out. So it's for people like you, Nadia, because you're deranged.
With the minister who told the House last week that most people have the common sense to step in where necessary if they perceive someone to be entering the supposed wrong facilities.
So there's two things here. First of all, the question of adherence to stereotypes. It's not about stereotypes. It's about what somebody's sex is. This is about whether somebody is male or female. We have had previous versions of advice and policies set by all manner of organisations that have said people should be allowed to access services based on how they identify or present. That is exactly about their adherence to particular stereotypes. What we're saying...
Less than a minute to answer the question about the minister, please.
Just rude.
The question about the minister in terms of common sense stepping in, I mean, people have, as I explained in the first...
You've got follow-up questions.
Thank you very much. We haven't...
They're really hostile, aren't they? They're really hostile.
I actually met before, so thank you very much for coming along. Just the questions that we've just heard and the answers seem to me to point up the whole basis of the issue that people have perhaps expressed concern over, this common sense approach. And
can you even be asked? Basically, what we have is you have a group of women there who pretend that they can't actually tell who are men and who are women. And then at the same time, they're claiming that they really care about these so-called trans people. And I think what I can tell you all is those people couldn't give a shit about anyone. They don't care about people having their genitals mutilated. They don't care about women who will definitely be afraid. You know, maybe they could answer. What does someone need to do, according to them, to be accepted in that place, in the women's space? Like, if the law was up to them, what would that man need to do in order to be able to use that space? What if he thinks he's a woman, but he dresses like every other regular bloke? Is that okay? Are women supposed to just be fine? Like, when you say you're a bloke, you must have come into the wrong toilets, and he says, I'm a woman. Is that okay? Like, this here is just... It's the only place where these women feel any sense of power, because they're all fucking losers. And so they go in this place and they can sneer at people, and they can pretend that they, you know, this is currency of I'm nicer, more accepting, more wonderful than you. That's it. It's no more complicated than that. That's it. Don't look for any reason. There's nothing really. It's just power. And the Death Eater was a good example, and Nadia Whittombe is a very good example. And I will leave you with a song just about them. But look, you have to keep speaking up. I mean, this is so utterly dire. People are just pretending that they don't know what you mean, pretending that these things are really complicated. It's not. It's not. Men always, even men in dresses, would stay out. And if they didn't stay out, they'd be made to leave. And now we've got to pretend that they have a right to be in these women's spaces and we're just fucking mean for keeping them out. Anyway, if you can keep speaking the truth, even when you're represented at £90,000 a year by utter morons, then I promise we will win. If you can try and find out what difference you can make in this nesting approach, like start with your home, then start with your community, build out, then I promise we will win. And do you know why else we're going to win? Well, because I never lose.
Feminist charlatan, more than a bargain then. I say I think women have cocks and that men look good in frocks, but I'll sell my arse on OnlyFans and claim that it's a feminist friend. But I've sold out to any who pay. That's the modern feminist charlatan's way. I'm a feminist where men go first. You see that I'm the worst. No wonder I'm so bitter. My feminism made life shitter. I wanted to sell out every girl for the magic of a man in her space. I wanted to make every last woman feel that I'm just a fucking disgrace. Feminist charlatan, more than a bargain and I say I think women have cocks and that men look good in frocks, but I'll sell my arse on OnlyFans and claim that it's a feminist friend. But I've sold out to any who pay. That's the modern feminist charlatan's way. Men can enter our spaces. We have no right to object. If you speak for women's rights, your career can just get wrecked. Girls in the boxing ring goes the race. Have a man in your changing room with a grin on his face. Don't be a bigot when he shows his dick. Don't feel so scared that you claim to feel sick. Feminist charlatan, more than I bargained and I say I think women have cocks and that men look good in frocks, but I'll sell my arse on OnlyFans and claim that it's a feminist friend. But I've sold out to any who pay. That's the modern feminist charlatan's way. Men can enter our spaces. We have no right to object.